Welcome back here today on the beautiful campus of Florida Panhandle Technical College, another in our series of what's going on in the area. We appreciate our viewers, and as such, we try to keep you informed. We got a political season just around the corner. As usual, we'll have all the candidates on. Right now, we have a special treat. We've got Milton Brown, who is currently a member of the Washington County, Florida School Board. Milton is no stranger to the show. He's been on several times talking about a variety of subjects. Thanks so much for taking our offer today. It's good to see you.
Thank you very much. I do appreciate the offer to come out, and I jumped at the chance to come.
Shame on you if you don't. As a school board member, as a businessman in the community, as a member in conjunction with the health department, which I guess is some of what we're going to be talking today,
yes, sir.
Your opportunity to talk about those things. At Bully Pulpit, it's amazing how many viewers we have. People sometimes will talk about a show that we did 6 years ago, and they'll go, man, I saw that show. I go, man, I don't even remember doing that show. So people watch.
Well, being in the public eye, whether it's, as you said, with the school board or Green Dot, I look at this as an opportunity to get my message out, whether that message is dealing with schools and especially right now dealing with school safety and the issues that have come up there, or Green Dot. One thing I've always done, no matter what job I've done, it's been one dealing with safety. Green Dot is an extension of the school board as far as the safety issues. And we, as you know, we do those in homes in Washington counties, both counties. And now really are talking to me even more about what we can do as far as safety in our schools. So the Green Dot program simply is an extension of everything we do as far as continuing to try to put safety at the forefront of the schools.
And I'm glad that you say that. Safety in and of itself. Right now, we've got an opportunity. Governor Rick Scott, governor of Florida, the head politician in Florida, has suggested that $500 million, $500 million, can be allocated toward the 67 counties in Florida to help to harden the schools, provide more security, and some other things. As far as I know, that has not completely passed, and it has to come across his desk after it goes through the Senate and Congress. But at this point, let's talk just a little bit about school safety. Here just recently, the Washington County Board of County Commissioners decided that they were going to allocate monies that would allow an SRO, a school resource officer, in each of the 6 schools. Up to that time, we had 3 schools divided, or 3 officers divided amongst the 6 schools. Talk a little bit about how that came about and how your feelings on that.
Well, one of the fortunate things as far as the schools were, as you said, we had 3 officers divided amongst 3 schools. The locations of the schools did allow us to be to where, such as Vernon High School and Vernon Middle, Chipley High School and the middle school are located very close together. So one officer could be on both campuses within a short period of time if called. It was the best we could do with the finances that we were given. However, it wasn't an optimum situation. We're very happy. In fact, at our school board meeting last night, we took the opportunity to put in our minutes. We thanked the Washington County School Board and their leadership, and realizing that some people see it as, okay, you've got a separate entity, you've got the school board, and then you've got the county commission and the county. But we're all one. We're all about, and they did prove that they're all about the safety of our schools and the safety of our school children. So by them allocating that money, those funds for the school resource officers, now we can do what we've always wanted to do, and that is to put an actual school resource officer on every individual campus. As I stated, the campuses were virtually kind of located right there together. However, has been proven in all the unfortunate incidents involving schools and school shootings, minutes means lives. And to be able to have an officer on the campus react, and even when you're talking maybe even a 3-minute difference, that could mean I don't know how many lives. So by them stepping up and doing that and doing those funding, I can't, what's one life worth? So I can't even begin to say how much we thank them for that and taking the lead on that. We're very happy that the governor, unfortunately, it took something like this to really put school safety up to the front. One thing I've always said is that as a school board, we're in the business of educating students. And I love it that the parents feel safe in sending their kids to school, but you can't educate students if they don't feel safe, or if their parents don't feel safe sending those students to school. So even though education is primary, priority one has to be safety and the safety of those students. So by this happening and the other things, one thing that I've told everybody that I speak to about school safety since the incident that occurred in Broward County is the business of education has changed. It has changed. No longer is it going to be the same old, same old. We are going to have to take some measures. I have said already that I see a minimum of every school having metal detectors. Whether that means a square metal detector which you walk through the door, or each resource officer having some metal detector wands, which I'm sure at minimum we'll have that. But safety now has to be priority one so that we can get to the business of education and having the students and, of course, the parents feeling safe enough to send their kids away for 6, 7 hours a day knowing they're going to come back home safely.
Yeah, and it all boils down to a matter of resources. We only have so much money. People who are being taxed because they own a homestead property and they're paying ad valorem property taxes, or because they're paying gas taxes or sales tax at the cash register. Everybody's got a level of pain. There's only so much money to go around. As you rightfully pointed out, you can't put a price on a life of any age, certainly a school child. But at the end of the day, there are only so many resources. What people don't realize is you've got sort of a hybrid situation. You've got the sheriff's office, which is funded by the Washington County Board of County Commissioners, that provides the school resource officers. Yes. It's not the school district. So where the school district had an endless treasure chest of money, you'd have an officer in every room. No doubt in our mind, because you know what's important. Talk a little bit about that cooperative relationship with the school district and the sheriff's office, and historically how that's worked out with the SRO, the relationship that we enjoy with them, and that sort of thing.
Well, we have historically, as a school board, contracted with the Sheriff's Department and helped to fund the resource officers that we have had. Those resource officers, to have resource officers on campus to meet the children and to greet them and to make them feel comfortable, whether it's elementary school students or high school students, you want them to feel comfortable enough that they will go to that officer before there's a problem. They will go to that officer and tell them, hey, there's a situation that's occurring, or this is going on. And that can only be done if they have a relationship or feel comfortable with that individual officer that they see day in and day out. And in the past, we have, like I said, in conjunction with the Sheriff's Department, funded resource officers. Most people are familiar with the DARE program. That has gone on for years. They do training and teaching. There's actually some other plans to have officers do some other training. Anything we can do to get the students not only aware as far as DARE, which is dealing with drugs, but also some of the stuff that's going on that I deal with in my other job, such as bullying and something that obviously rises to the top of the issues right now, cyberbullying. Almost all high school students right now have cell phones. So many, and I'm not trying to get off on another track, but so many parents and adults, when I talk to them, they say, well, we dealt with bullying and all in the past, and they're right, but not to the level that it is now. A student back in my day when I was in school, if something happened, I could go home and be away from it, or during, say, Christmas break, I could be away from it, not having to deal with it. Now, because of social media, because of cell phones that are with the students 24 hours a day, if a student was to put something on social media or to bully them, first of all, it could be recorded video, and that doesn't go away when they're there. They go home, and again, because of social media, someone could be texting them, hey, what happened? Or, hey, we saw what happened, or this happened, that happened. And it literally is something that occurs 24 hours a day for them, and there's no relief. So the thought that what happened back then in my day when I was in school is similar and the same as what is occurring now, it just isn't right. It's different. That's why you do see reactions that are different than they were then. So that's why it's important for those resource officers to be more than just security on campus. They've got to be a part of the campus. They've got to say, you know, this is my school. That's why we don't like having one here today and at another school tomorrow. We want them to be invested in that school, to take heart and say, these are my students. I take their protection personally, And by doing that, you know, our officers, I'll put them against anybody. But by doing that, you have officers who, when that school, say in the situation of Chipley High School recently, goes to the Final Four in their basketball tournament, that officer says, I want to go with them. I want to be there. I want to be the officer who's protecting them. Because, yes, that venue, say the Lakeland Civic Center, could have security, but he takes it personal. I personally know these kids. I want to protect them. And there's nothing like having that personal connection as an officer to say, buy in and say, this is mine, this is why I want to protect the school, more than just security.
Many times, people simply don't have interaction with law enforcement unless it's an adversarial situation. Either they called the law because they were being attacked or had some reason to need protection, or they are the defendant who is doing the attacking. In either case, not a great opportunity for your first encounter with law enforcement. With SROs, kids have a chance to, as you point out, daily interact with an officer who is the good guy. And so do you think that definitely sort of relates to a better law enforcement versus public relationship later on?
I think there's no question about it. One thing, and this is giving you an example, at working as a law enforcement officer, as a state trooper for 26 years, one of the things that I would always encourage parents to do is you would sit in the restaurant and sometimes the parents would say, well, if you don't do this, I'm going to get the officer. And I would say, please don't do that, because in that respect, as you said, the only idea they see of law enforcement is bad. Well, that officer's going to do this and that, and I don't want them to see that. So them working in the schools gives the students the idea of, well, they can teach us. They hear about their families, the officers' families. They know that officer has children, and they see them as a person who cares, not only as, and I'll put it this way, the big bad officer who, in the cases, like you said, it's an adversarial relationship where they're either the victim of an incident or they're the perpetrator, and the officer's having to take action there. They can see them on a daily basis in which the officer simply walks by and say, hey, how's it going? How did you do last night? Or a lot of cases, the officers look forward to going and seeing those students, whether it's in band or whether it's in, hey, you did great at that band concert last night. I think you were awesome. And when they hear that, it reinforces them that, hey, this is a person. They take interest in me. And there's a big difference in a person who's just walking by that officer, seeing them every blue moon, and them talking to that officer. So when they have a situation and they say, well, I think I saw something over here that wasn't quite right. Oh, I can talk to officer so-and-so about it. And they feel more comfortable talking to that officer. They know that they had that officer in their program, or they know they had that officer in another class in which they talked to them. And not only in the teaching, but a lot of times, I know one of the classes, one of the science classes, we use Doppler radar. And the school would say, hey, get the officer to bring out their actual radar. They stood by the highway in clock cars, and the science teacher explained how Doppler radar worked. Well, that officer was able to talk from a standpoint of here's how we use it and all. So again, that's another interaction where they could say, wow, this is real life education on things that we might use one day, and find out there's something else besides. A lot of times in class you say, well, I'll never use that. And when they hear of something in science such as Doppler radar or stuff that, and one of the things that, I'm not the greatest mathematician, but I learned real quick in law enforcement, when you're dealing with crash and recreating crash scenes, you deal with something called a drag factor. And I'm not wanting to get too technical, but you'd have to know math formulas in that. And a lot of times they would call an officer in and say, hey, would you explain these formulas in math and how they could use them in the real world? Well, when an officer or when a student sees that going on, it not only helps to familiarize them with that officer, makes them comfortable with that officer, but they can see from a teacher standpoint and from a useful standpoint of, hey, this is real world. I can use this also. So there's so many benefits from having that officer on campus, and I'll say instead of just being an officer, but being a real person.
Our guest today is Milton Brown from the Washington County School District. When we come back, we're going to talk a little bit more about Green Dot, that anti-bullying program that so far is getting great results, and we'll be right back.